Let's stop right there. We are weak, but he is strong. I love the beginning of this verse. But thanks be to whom? But thanks be to God. Okay? When he's talking here about the freedom he experienced, the love that he had for the law, the freedom he had from sin in his life, he did not credit anything but God in that. He said, thanks be to God that though we were slaves to sin, we became obedient from the heart to that form of teaching to which you were committed. You know, he is able to change your hearts and to free you from sin. He is able to do that. And I continue to argue that if I am justified by faith, I am sanctified by faith as well. I cannot become holy by discipline or hard work or employing monastic disciplines on myself. I mean, I've tried that. I honestly have tried that. It does not work. Okay? I am made holy by God. Okay? We're all in bondage to one who is greater than us. Do you remember when Moses was telling the Israelites when they go into the Holy Land? He said, God's going to deliver you from all these nations which are greater than you. Okay? There's not a single nation in Canaan who is weaker than you. You're going to lose. That's one of the weird things about being a Christian, is we're the favorite in a fight that we can't win. That doesn't make any sense, does it? You know how they always pick, it's football time now, and all these prognosticators are going to pick who's going to win every game, and they'll say who the favorite is. Well, in the fight that we have with sin, we're the favorite, but we're the favorite in a fight that we can't win. And that seems so maddening and frustrating. But it's the truth. God expects us to win this. We should win it. But it can only be won if we're not fighting. Okay? Because as long as we're fighting, we're losing. But when we submit ourselves to the Lord, and He's the one doing the work, we win. So that's the call in our lives, and that's what Paul's trying to share there. Look at me at verse 18. Verse 18 says, and having been freed from sin, you became slaves of righteousness. We're fighting, but never doubting. You know, what made Solomon's decision so wise back when, you remember the story where the woman in her sleep rolled over and suffocated her little child? And when she woke up and saw that she killed her child, she went and took her child and switched it with another young mother's baby. And when the other young mother woke up and found the child dead next to her and saw that it was not hers, she sued this other woman to get her child back. And remember, nobody could answer the problem, and it went all the way to King Solomon. And you remember Solomon's argument, his decision. He said, okay, fine. If I don't know whose baby it is, I can't decide, I don't know who's lying. Let's just cut it in half. And we'll give half to each mother. And of course at that, the one who had killed her child accidentally, she said, fine, I'll take half. But the woman whose child it really was said, no, give it to the other woman. I don't want to see that child harmed. Well, I think in the same way, you need to understand that we are claimed by two different parents ourselves. We're claimed by the world, and we're claimed by God, right? God makes a claim on us as His children, created in His image, and the world makes a claim on us that we're sons of sin and Satan, and that we're His. And, Satan would love to have half of you. Okay? He'd love to have you cut in half. Because Satan understands that half of you is none of you. And if you're just going to give half of your heart to the Lord today, just half of your mind, half of your soul, half of your life, Satan's happy with just half. Because he knows the other, it's like cutting the baby in half. The baby dies. And half of you is none of you. And if you only give half of yourself to anything, especially the Lord, it's not enough. You must become a slave of righteousness. And so, if you want to live today, you need to renounce any allegiance to Satan and the world, make no covenants with any sin in your life, and strive only for perfect holiness. When you were baptized, the image of baptism is what? Death. You died to your old self. You died to sin, and you were raised again to a new life, a new creation. And that's your allegiance today. And so while we continue to sin, and I continue to sin all the time, the sins that I commit, like Abraham's, were sins that I made after having left home. And, every sin that Abraham committed he committed along the way. He was looking for that kingdom whose builder and architect was the Lord. And so while I continue to sin, and it's grievous, there's sins that I commit along the way towards sanctification. I haven't given up. It's not like Abraham stopped in one of those towns that he stopped in and built a home there and just stayed there, like he probably wanted to do, where he built a framed-up house and he planted crops and he raised his family there. No, he kept pushing on. What's unacceptable to God is when we give up, when we quit the journey, when we quit fighting, when we quit being a pilgrim. That's the point. Look at verse 19. I'm trying to move through here. I might go past some of this stuff. He says in verse 19, I am speaking in human terms because of the weakness of your flesh. For just as you presented your members as slaves to impurity and to lawlessness, resulting in further lawlessness, so now present your members as slaves to righteousness, resulting in sanctification. We're discouraged, but we must believe. I get discouraged because we live in a world that's inclined to sin. I understand that. We're born and raised in sin. That's what we know. And a lot of times, because you're born and raised in sin, you can't understand holiness. And you can't. I don't know what that's like. It'd be impossible for me to imagine what it would be like to fly, because I never have, right? I've never had wings, and I've never just, run down my driveway and take off and fly to the church. I don't know how to do that. I wish that I could. But it's incomprehensible to me because I've never known it. I've been in bondage to gravity my entire life. And because we're raised in sin, we live in sin, there's so much about the holy life, the life of freedom, that's incomprehensible to us. But at some point, you have to shelve and stow the incomprehensibility of holiness and attempt to do it. You have to make that leap and say, I will taste and see that the Lord is good. I will obey. I will trust and obey. I will commit my life to something which I have not yet known. And God promises us to meet us there, to give us that ability through the Holy Spirit, to have self-control, to have peace. Those are the fruits of the Holy Spirit, aren't they? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Those things are possible. But they're fruits of the Spirit, not the fruits of self-discipline or anything else. Okay. Look at verses 20 and 21. For when you were slaves of sin, you were free in regard to righteousness. Therefore, what benefit were you then deriving from the things of which you are now ashamed? For the outcome of those things